Councilwoman Lena Gonzalez, Councilmember Janine Pierce, Councilwoman Susie Price, Councilmember Deborah Superno.
Here.
Councilwoman Stacy Mungo.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dee Andrews. Councilmember Roberto Uranga.
What is it?
Councilman Al Austin. Councilmember Rex Richardson. And Mayor Garcia.
Thank you. I'm here. This is our last charter meeting public hearing. I want to also note we will be obviously voting on the five items as they come up, and it's the last time for public comment as well. And so I'm opening up public comment for the public hearing. Please come forward. If you're going to speak, please come forward. Hold on. If you're going to speak, please come forward.
There's still people coming in because there's security.
So
they're not able to make it, and they're having difficulty.
And we'll make sure,
Honorable Mayor,
hold on a second, hold on a second.
Selmer.
Okay, we will make sure that everyone that's in line will get a chance to speak. So please, guys, I have 3 meetings today, one at every hour. Please,
You put it at 3 o'clock rather than 7 or
go ahead.
My name is Laura Selmer. First of all, I'd like to protest that we were out there at 2:15, 2:30, almost 3 o'clock, and we were not let in. And so the public is being held back from attending the meeting, listening to us. And we deserve in public comment to be heard. It is our government, and our voice should be heard, and this is why hearings are held. So I do want to protest that vehemently. I do believe 2 terms is enough to have our government to elect people. We have a process in place where good candidates will do write-in campaigns, and the people are able to elect the 3rd term for those that we want. I don't think that the expense of $600,000 of public taxpayer money to put this on the ballot makes any sense to our city. We have some police needs on the east side that are important to us. We have more people breaking into homes on our side of town, and we'd like more police. If you have the extra money, we'd rather see it serve the people of Long Beach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Also, can I have, can someone from the clerk's office just go up and get people into the auditorium, please? Yes, Miss Lee, please.
Hi, Corliss Lee. My address is on file. And I'm opposed actually to putting any of these amendments out this year. I don't think we need a special election. I think that's an unnecessary expenditure. That could be like $650,000, and we have so many other needs in this city. I'm opposed to the city using our tax dollars to fund a special election for the purpose of voting on the 5 charter amendments. The process for vetting what is important to the community needs to include meetings held at times working people can attend, not 3 p.m., and in a location that is convenient to the residents in the various districts, which is not particularly City Hall. There should not be a rush to spend $500,000 on topics that are not important to the community. And the reason I feel I know what's important, I'm considered to be a city activist. I'm on almost everybody's email distribution that participates in citywide activities. And I have not seen any of these on a list that concerns people. There should not be a rush to spend that $500,000 for the 5 proposed amendments could arguably be implemented without a special election. And the 5th item, extending term limits, does not reflect the will of the people who have already voted for 2 terms. The excuse that is being given for extending term limits is a thinly veiled effort at spin control for a proposal that is a self-serving power grab and not true reform. 2 terms are enough, and the write-in process works well for a representative that the public endorses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Why don't we go, Ms. Cantrell, did you want to go up next?
Thank you. Ann Cantrell, and I am a member of Citizens About Responsible Planning. We've sent you letters stating our position on these items. I agree with everything that Corliss just said, and I would only add that instead of getting rid of term limits you are extending them. We have 2 terms, and there is also a method that anyone that is wants to vote to run for the 3rd term has the ability to do this with a write-in. I do not believe there needs to be any change to our current term limit ordinance. And I urge you to vote against all 5 of these. If there's something that comes up that is really important that needs to be put on the ballot, you always have the 2020 election, which would not require this extra money that you're having to spend this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please. Please come forward and line up. Thank you so much.
John Dietz, I currently reside at 3600 Pacific Avenue. I've been a council watcher since 1965 when my father was first elected to the 3rd District. That's longer than, exception for Vice Mayor Andrews, that's probably longer than most of you folks been alive. I know Dee's a year older than I am. But in all that time, I have only witnessed 2 charter amendments that are worth a diddly darn. One was the creation of the Citizens Police Complaint Commission. The other was, in fact, term limits. And in both cases, those charter amendments were driven by popular demand from the populace. It was the people's initiative to bring those forward. For you to mess with those now, I find reprehensible. It is so blatantly and transparently self-serving. You should be ashamed of yourselves. All 5 of these things ought to be kicked to the curb ASAP. They're totally unnecessary. It's a blatant expenditure of money that we could very much be better used elsewhere. And, like I say, shame on anybody that messes with things that were originally initiated by the public, by popular demand, by citizens going out, pounding the pavement, gathering signatures. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please. Mr. Pressburg. Mr. Pressburg.
Good afternoon, Council, Honorable Mayor, staff. My name is Dan Pressburg. I'm on file. Just like Mr. Dietz said, this is uncalled for. It's unnecessary. And you know what? I don't hear anybody asking for this. Reconsider it. Do whatever you need to do. $665,000 could be spent a heck of a lot better and elsewhere. I can think of plenty of places up where I live where it could be spent. I can also think that somewhere in this budget cycle, you're going to be running into a deficit from what I can read. And since I've audited a number of banks and I was an examiner for a while, I don't get it. Why spend the money now? Nobody's asking for this. Nobody's going to applaud you for it. The people have generated term limits. There's been a number of times they've tried to do this. Why even go there? The other thing that really I think is, as John said, reprehensible is to whittle away at our only independent elected auditor and whittle away at speech, this, that, and the other thing, even though it's been added back in. That's our voice right there, to monitor you guys. It's a check and balance. Let's stick with what we know. Let's not go into uncharted waters. Let's totally drop this and move on.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Come forward. Ms. Prophet. Ms. Prophet, thank you.
Ann Prophet, the Lafayette, downtown Long Beach. There are more than 65 people waiting outside to get in here, and you've only got one person out there to check security. It took me half an hour. That is not right. And I know that you're ready and willing and able to pass these 5 stupid charter amendments, but it's not the right time. It's certainly not the right place. And let me start with your ethics committee. It needs to be independent of the mayor. Pure and simple. We have ethics problems in this city, and you're doing nothing about them. Extending term limits, that's laughable. We don't want you here for 12 to 16 years. We need people who care about this city, and most of you are too busy talking among yourselves to pay attention to us. Redistricting should not be up to the city council or the mayor, because you've shown that you're going to gerrymander us to death. And the city auditor should be independent, and he or she should report to the city clerk, not to you. It's that ethics thing again. And I don't see any reason to combine gas and water other than to make yourselves richer so that you can increase those pay, perks, and pensions. It's irresponsible fiscally for you, the council, and Dr. Mayor Garcia to waste city money in excess of $650,000 to put these ethically irresponsible amendments on the ballot. Look at the people outside that can't get in. We want good governance. You haven't provided it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And we're going to make sure everyone that's outside gets in, of course. Mr. Sippel.
I'm not Sopo.
I'm sorry. I know that.
My name is Joe Mello, and I'm Los Altos Center, adjacent neighborhoods. I'm here to talk about term limits. The 4th District is the birthplace of term limits. We also had a write-in election that pitted 2 friends and neighbors against each other and tore a deep hole in our community. But not once during that bitter election or afterwards did anyone say that write-ins were a loophole or that it was a broken system. I received this email from one of you last week on the dais. Hey Joe, hope all is good. Just in response, please note that we have no term limits anymore currently. We are trying to fix a broken system. People can now run forever and their name will appear on the general ballot. We want to limit the terms to 3, not allow people to go beyond that. All of you know that's not true. The loophole argument and hiding behind letting the people decide is ambition looking for a solution. I believe people like you get involved to do good things. For the last 2 years, all of you have watched Republican leaders in Congress stand by silently and not stand up for the truth. Our community needs you to stand up for the truth today and not allow the new normal in Washington of lies and deceit to come here to Long Beach. Councilwoman Price, as an attorney, you know the future court case to force a write-in option could be possible and leave us with 3 terms in a write-in. That's why Judge Dennis Carroll included a write-in when he wrote the 2-term amendment. Every day as a prosecutor, you know there cannot be any justice without truth. You know what the truth is here. The people are not bringing this forward. This is not about a loophole. Gerald and Stacy, I know you two. I know you two the best because you're my neighbors. You both started as neighborhood leaders. I know you understand in our neighborhood, without truth between neighbors, there is no trust. Councilman Andrews, as an athlete, you played by the rules. In your lost years, you learned the hard way what happens when people cheat the rules and don't tell the truth. I hope with that wisdom today, you'll stand with the truth. Councilman Austin, as an ethics proponent, you know that ethics is not only talking the talk, but it's walking the walk. Councilman Uranga, if it's good enough for your wife, it's good enough for everyone else, the write-in. And Councilman Richardson, the only thing I can ask you is WWOD. What would the Obamas do? You know what Barack thinks about the spineless leadership in Congress, and you know what Michelle wants you to do. When you go low, they go high. To all of you, I urge you to do what's in your heart, go high, put this measure on the ballot as increasing term limits, because the vote to do anything else is really a lie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linda Scholl, and I wanted to say I appreciate being here, but to talk doesn't serve much purpose unless we have discussion and dialogue. And that's the part that's been missing for me. I would like to know why these proposals are here, what your thinking is of why you think they're good for us, and then to also hear from us what our concerns are. But where there's a discussion, it's not just one way. For all of the land use, we did everything one way, one way, one way. The citizens were the ones that brought the issue of term limits by a citizens' initiative paid for by the citizens. Why should the citizens' money now be taken to go put the proposal for term limits on the ballot? We don't think that's an appropriate way to do this. We really appreciate the work that you're all doing, and this is not personal to each of you. This is for the reason that term limits were put in place to begin with, which is to prevent corruption. So you may all be doing a great job, but you cannot provide for how it will be for others. And the people who are incumbents, they will always get the priority. I went and voted this time, and I appreciate your work, Mayor. I went to vote. It was 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I was the 7th voter of the day. That's deplorable. So we want to encourage people to run, and write-ins work very effectively. I also want to point out that the United States president is 2 terms, and the Russian president is not 2 terms. Which way do you want to be?
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I want to express support for what all the other speakers said behind me. By the way, the speakers behind me are not here for you. You are here for us because we, the people, are your bosses. You are public servants, and your purpose, the only purpose for you being here is to do our bidding, not the other way around. So this, as I've spoken in the last 2 times, I want to protest every single one of these proposals. They're all disingenuous, but I want to talk a little bit about redistricting, which I didn't speak about last time. We spent some time with the Cambodian community, some of whom are here, present here, and they were not aware of the all the other issues that were on the table today and how they are all intertwined. It cannot be an independent redistricting commission, even though the proposal is really good the way that it's been written, that we can't support it if it is selected by the Ethics Commission, which is anything but an ethical commission. If the Ethics Committee, a watchdog committee, is selected by City Hall, by the mayor, by the manager, by, I forget, somebody else. Anyway, if it's selected by City Hall, it's not ethical. You can't have the fox guarding the hen house. So we worked with Common Cause up and through the weekend and up until this morning. We understand that Common Cause in Sacramento sent to you, Mayor, and possibly to other council members a series of amendments to the Ethics Commission, which, if accepted by you, and if the proposal is changed, we would consider supporting it. The 3 most important items is, as other people have said here, it's really important that the Ethics Commission be truly independent, and the Redistricting Commission, which depends on it as well. So the 3 major items are that beyond the initial selection by City Hall, all subsequent commissioners shall be selected by the Commission from a pool of qualified candidates subject to approval by City Council. Number 2, there will be no firings of commissioners except for violations of the terms of service and for cause, which the Commission will recommend and which shall be approved by City Council after allowing the Commissioner to present his or her defense. And the last one, the Commission will set its own agenda, free from interference by City Hall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valle. Ms. Legines, please.
Good evening, Diana Legines. First of all, I want to, and this is part of the subject, I want to address the parking. You drive in here, there was absolutely no parking. And this is indicative, this whole parking situation today, the time this meeting was, everything was indicative of the attitude of the mayor and council. Let's discourage public participation as much as possible. You have signs that were left up where it says employees only, and I asked about it, and then what they said was, oh, we were told we had to leave it up, even though you can park up there. So people were leaving. So this is not all the people. People had to leave because they had no parking. Then when they finally did get here, some of them that finally made it in, it was very ill-prepared. There was no security. I mean, there was 1, 2 people, and this long line, people not being able to get in. It's just, again, this is the attitude that's being put out there. We really don't want to hear from you. It's just very obvious that everything was set up to discourage public participation. Well, guess what? People are here anyway. Now let's go on to this proposal. This is the most unbelievable, self-serving charter. These amendments are totally self-serving. As people have pointed out already, these appointments for redistricting and for the ethics, thank you. I just, I forget what they are because there are no ethics here. So the appointments, I mean, come on. This is an invitation to corruption. It's just terrible. The whole setup is totally self-serving. And we have we have a motto of in the city of serving the public. Well, it's not. It's serving yourselves. And I say shame on you. Shame, shame. And as Dan pointed out a minute ago, no one asked for this. The only one that's asking for it is you, and it's self-serving. Come on, people, no one really wants this. And do remember that, as I'm sure you know, the incumbent always has the advantage. They get to use that time and the money, city money, to basically advertise themselves. The whole thing, again, is self-serving. Shame on you. I do hope you decide to think about it and drop it and not be shamed at the polls, because hopefully that's what will happen, because we will find a way to defeat this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is David Chabato. I reside in the 8th District. Mr. Mayor, I supported your original campaign. I actually voted for you both times. And maybe I missed it, but I don't remember you saying anything about this being part of your platform in your second election. Maybe others have heard of it. I have not. I think that would have been a convenient time to say that this is what you were planning. I want to go on record as opposing every one of these charter amendments. I agree with every statement that I've heard before me. And I want to ask each and every one of you 2 questions. It's very important, the image of Long Beach, as you all know, it's very important to the world on how we run our business. And if these were to pass, I think we're going to be the laughing stock. There has to be some way to show that you are not doing this for your self-interest. And number one, I think each and every one of you who decides to vote for this should explain why it needs to be a special election if it's not in your special interest. You're talking about spending a lot of money of our taxpayer money and not justifying it, as far as I know. So that's the one question that I would like to hear from each one who is considering voting for this. Number 2, in order to show that you are not doing this as self-serving self-interest, I think you should abstain from running for a 3rd term. I really would like to hear anybody who wants to vote for it come out and say that I will vote for this, but I'm not going to run for a 3rd term. I would really like to hear that, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. And please move down the steps if possible. we can
Good
do
afternoon,
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I want to speak just briefly on, my name is Gary Hittrick, I'm with the Long Beach Coalition for Good Jobs and a Healthy Community. Speak just a minute on the Ethics Commission. A few weeks ago, I was here and I spoke on behalf of a group of residents who had a number of concerns about the way the original Ethics Commission charter proposal was laid out. I'm here today to convey our thanks mainly to Mayor Garcia for actually meeting with us and sitting down with us and working through a lot of these issues. We think that we really feel that the Ethics Commission proposal, as it's been revised, is a great start, or it's to what can be a good vehicle, an excellent vehicle to address some of these issues and really strengthen trust in our governance. We know that the additional rules and regulations governing the Ethics Commission will actually be laid out and detailed in the municipal code, and we look forward to continuing to work with the mayor and the council through this process, because that's really where the rubber hits the road. The charter amendment sort of lays out these broad parameters, and if that is agreed upon by the voters, then the details will be worked out with in the process. And because the Ethics Commission will be written in the municipal code, we also encourage others to engage their council representatives and the mayor in this process. But once again, we want to thank Mayor Garcia for his openness and willingness to meet with us, and we look forward to working with the council as this process moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Victor Sanchez, Director of the Long Beach Coalition for Good Jobs and a Healthy Community. I also just want to reiterate what Dr. Hittrick mentioned about the ethics charter amendment specifically. When it first came out, I think a lot of us kind of agreed that the way it was written was not necessarily the most ethical. And I think when we reached out to the mayor's office, their staff graciously set up a good amount of time for us to give and input and feedback, and we've been pretty active in providing commentary, changes of which that we have been fortunate enough to see as a part of the newly released proposal. We do think it's important that the mayor is not the central component of choosing who sits on the Ethics Commission. We think that the most recent proposal does a really good job of balancing that out with the city auditor and the other three commissioners being selected by a different process. And I think what's most important is that there's also infrastructure, or at least language in there that allows future infrastructure to be built in by saying that a budget as well as staffing needs to be figured out via the municipal code. And so we really do think there's an opportunity through the municipal code process to work with the council and the mayor to figure out what the rest of the Ethics Commission looks like, and we look forward to participating in that process with you all. So thank you all very much again.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Julie Haff. I live in the 5th District. I want to echo what a lot of my other fellow citizens in the city have stated up here earlier. I'm very concerned that if you have $665,000 to spend, why did you raise, our taxes, our sales tax? That doesn't make sense to me. Why aren't you using that money to fix roads? If you have excess money, why aren't you using that for our infrastructure and other things that, are necessary in our city? Regarding term limits, I think that that's just ridiculous. Like somebody said up here earlier, very self-serving. It's ridiculous, and you need to let the citizens of this state decide on what they want. As far as the Ethics Commission, it already seems like it's a violation of ethics because you're not giving the people of this city a chance and an opportunity to, say what they want. But if it's only going to be appointed by one person, then that just seems like unethical on its face. As far as the city auditor, that's probably one of the few things that we have in this city to allow us as citizens to know that you guys are being looked at and you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, not only as our city council, our mayor, and other, other places in the city, other departments in the city, excuse me. As far as redistricting, you haven't provided any information to the citizens to say, well, this is a good idea and why it's a good idea. You guys are just making these decisions without involving your constituents. I voted for Mungo, not because I don't even think she's the greatest candidate. I voted for her because the counterpart was worse than her. As far as Prop M, you know, to me, that was like similar to the gas tax. Like, it was all, we were duped into voting for this thing. I didn't vote for it, but I know a lot of people did, and maybe they didn't go a little further and read what they should have read, but a lot of people were duped into this. Now, the last thing I want to say to you know, all the council members is, you know, why don't you guys start listening to your constituents? I have property in Price's. I have a property in Price's district. I have one in Pierce's district, Mungo's district, and I don't feel like, as a citizen of this state, this country, the state, whatever, the city, that you guys are listening to us. And I wish that you guys would start stepping up and stop being Robert's robots. Stop being Robert's robots.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council, Jake Atwood, Vice President of Long Beach Firefighters Association. I'm here today on behalf of all of our Long Beach firefighters to lend support for these changes. This is good, transparent governance, and we support you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, hey guys, hey, everyone gets a chance to speak. And please, none of that. Mr. Fox.
Hello, Robert Fox, Executive Director of the Council of Neighborhood Organizations. And I want to be brief, but I want to be really to the point. Number one, you people are in violation of a state law called AB 1344. In that law, it requires you to have public outreach meetings beyond work hours, 2 of them, and you have not done that. So whatever you decide today still is in violation of state law. Do expect to get a lawsuit about that if you move forward. I just want to be clear about that. Had you opened it to the public, since we do a lot of research here, we could have told you, hey, you need to have that kind of a problem. We did that with the land use element, and guess what? You all listened. I so admired Stacy for listening to us and representing us. Susie doing the same thing. God bless you. And Daryl, you've always been wonderful. But this thing here is not with citizen involvement, and therefore it's flawed. Number one, the term limits. I'm going to speak directly to that. I don't have a lot of time. We have 2 terms and a write-in candidacy. The state will most likely support a write-in candidacy in any time, anybody who wants to do that. It's part of our precedent in the law. So what you're really doing is adding on a 3rd term. The only person who benefits from this, unfortunately, is you, Robert. As of last week, the city attorney opined that D. Andrews would also be benefited by this in the short term because he said that the write-in candidacy of D. Andrews was null and void. Since when did the city attorney have the right to void the vote of the citizens of Long Beach? I don't believe that. This thing needs to stop right now. It's going to cost the citizens of Long Beach $760,000. It's $470,000 for your First Amendment, $45,000 for each consecutive one, subsequent one, and then $100,000 you've allocated for the propaganda. It's not right. I'm very concerned with the auditor. You struck out the word immediate. If you look at the backup languaging, the auditor is supposed to have immediate access to records. Let me tell you why. When you substitute timely, it doesn't mean immediate. When I asked for a public records request in the land use element 3 months before the vote, I received that document 4 weeks after the vote was taken, and the clerk told me that that was reasonable and timely. So here's the thing. If we don't have immediate access, and I talked to Laura Dowd about this, then they can scrub the books. They can change the dialogue. They can shred the paperwork. Why do you think that they got a warrant to search Michael Cohen's office and house immediately? Give us the docs. They didn't give him a 4-week warning on it because they wouldn't have gotten the information. You're an attorney. You know this, Susie. This is completely flawed. It's flawed in every essence. The commission has no end game. Like the Citizens Police Complaint Commission, the report was buried by the city manager and the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Just 1 second more. I'm sorry.
I got to do the time.
I know you do.
Last sentence, please. Go ahead.
My last sentence is very simple. Redistricting, you don't need to do, because guess what? We don't need to have a committee to redistrict until after 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
That's when the census happens.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, thank you. We've had 15 speakers. We're going down to 2 minutes now for the next 15. Oh, no. And we're doing the same. That's what we're doing? Unless there's any objection of the council? Hey, guys, shh. I am control, you know, that's not the way it works. So, next speaker. It's going to be the same at the budget meeting and the same at the council meeting as it has been in the past at other meetings. Go ahead, next speaker.
Okay, I'm Joe Weinstein. I sent you a letter on behalf of CARP Citizens about Responsible Planning. We had 3 concerns. First of all, this is an entirely unnecessary proposal election because 4 out of the 5 proposals could be tried out at no cost, refined before any need to flexibly freeze them at great cost in charter amendments. The only exception is the term limits. No cost-benefit analysis has been performed to show that any of these would be worth the costs. Yes, the process was flawed. Just now, the mayor said that I have 1 minute less than the people before me. The same thing was done on me with regard to agenda support papers. My letter concerning 2 of these proposals was never put on any agenda support papers, whereas the rah-rah letter of the firemen's guys was put on without any question, right? But this is not the biggest problem that you face, and I'm speaking here more for myself than just for CARP. The most cynical proposal before you is that Ethics Commission because you collectively are massively in ethical violation precisely on account of what you did as a result of the last time you put a measure on the ballot, namely Measure M. And I'm not talking about the content of Measure M. I'm not talking about whether maybe some statements about it were correct or not. I'm talking about something more fundamental. Your information campaign, so-called, committed 2 gross disrespectful injustices on Long Beach voters. First of all, deliberately unequal treatment. Mailers to a favored 43% of the households who were the privileged, the worthy people to receive information, and no mailers to 57% of the deplorable, unworthy people.
Thank you very much.
Keep on going.
Actually, we have the next speaker. I'll let you, last sentence, please. Go ahead, sir.
You owe it to the voters to apologize, to correct. Give us something we have not had in the way of voter empowerment. You just read my letter. You will see the suggestions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor and council, I want to go on record as opposing each and every one of these measures. I'm going to talk about the utility consolidation measure. This measure is an essential component, part and parcel of Proposition M, recently passed by the voters, now in litigation. As with Prop M, this takeover is intended to save money for the citizens of Long Beach by doing away with redundancy. However, as soon as Prop M passed, which was supposed to lower utility rates, they went up by the same amount taken. This city is now involved in a lawsuit that charges that the city is subverting Public Utility Commission rules that require the utilities to return their customers any surplus fees. But according to Prop M, the city can now legally keep the surplus as essentially another tax. The same will happen with the consolidation of the utilities. According to the measure that you are proposing, you will control the revenue transfers to the general fund, a guaranteed initial maximum amount of 12% of that total revenue of the combined departments. Conservatively, if you look at the budget for both of these departments, you are looking at over $40 million a year in transfers. This is not good governance. This is developing another behemoth of a bureaucracy formed with your pals in power. And we pay for it with higher taxes disguised as even higher utility fees. Mayor, whatever it is that you do with this, if you destroy the spirit of corps of the water department employees with this takeover, all of the theoretical efficiencies of the merger are meaningless. You will destroy our water department, not yours. You are our public servant and nothing more. If you continue to get out of line, the people of Long Beach will remember.
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker, please.
I'm not good at public speaking, but I did work for a nonprofit organization where transparency was not available to the public, that the people fed into this fund. And there is no writings, and there is no auditors, and I don't see any communication from the city as far as where the general pool goes. None. And we don't have an auditor that says, well, this person's on this committee, and this auditor is going to, an exterior auditor is going to see where the monies went for that 12-month. I oppose all the measures. I oppose the water, and I think that 2 terms is more than enough in any business. People get burned out, they get set in their ways, they bring in their own ideas of how things should be. So with that said, my name is Nan Falk. Jeannie Pierce is my district person, and Alamitos Beach is a mess. There was a gentleman yesterday, very quickly, who punched a hole in a business and left blood all over the place. It took 15 minutes for anyone to show up to intervene to help the public. I just thought I would leave that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please. And I have, I think I saw Ms. Gablich. Okay, Ms. Gablich is our last speaker. We're closing the speakers list. Ms. Gablich will end the speakers list. Please, Mr. Coleman.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, my name is Mark Coleman. I'm here today primarily as an advisor to the Equity for Cambodians group, which has been here in the prior sessions of this charter committee. We're here primarily to speak about the redistricting amendment. But I want to say it's nice to see all my brothers and sisters here tonight. I do think that all their experiences are valid and they need to be respected. And I do hope that all of the flaws that we've seen in the process by which these amendments have come forward get seriously addressed. That's something council owes it to the public. There were many problems today. There were many problems in the way these amendments came forward. At the same time, though, I think it's only fair to say that we been to all 3 hearings. This is our 3rd one, and many of our members are here today. And we had a different experience. We were invited in to help rewrite the amendment. And today's amendment on redistricting is vastly different than what it started. And there still are some issues, as Mr. Ovalle raised, the Ethics Commission composition, but he's mistaken in the power that the Ethics Commission has. The Ethics Commission, ultimately, whether it's the Ethics Commission or it's a panel, depends on whether the voters approve the Ethics Commission, has very limited power, and they end up doing random draw selections out of the ultimate pool of very carefully applied for volunteers positions from the council, from the community. There is one change that needs to be made. The ballot initiative as presented to the voters is a little misleading. I've made that presentation. It needs to be corrected to conform to the contours of the exact amendment by adding the language every 10 years or at such other time as may be required. That's my last change. I'm going to go home now. Thank you all very much for all your hard work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Next speaker, please. Come forward.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Laura Salm. I am a property owner in the 4th District and 6th District. I'm also on the board of directors for the Property Improvement District in Midtown, also the co-chair of the Equity for Cambodian, as well as the executive director for the May Center, a trauma healing center. That started a movement in the Cambodian community for equitable redistricting as a result of some political power. Back in 2011, our community was divided into 4 districts. For the last 1 year, Cambodian people have studied the laws and the adopted policies, and as a result, we were given the opportunity to work with the City of Long Beach on the citizens redistricting. On June 12th, when I was here, I shared similar anger, very much angry about the draft that came out that did not reflect what it was supposed to be. I believe that it is my duty to come here to tell you what's wrong with the policy. At the same time, I do owe it to everyone here to come to tell you when you are doing things that are correct. Since June 12 up until now, the City of Long Beach, Mayor Garcia, as well as Chief of Staff of the 4th District, my council member Supernal, as well as Al Austin, all have worked with me and my group, the Equity of Cambodians, to draft this wonderful policy that is now the state-of-the-art policy. We have put over 2 months into working with the City of Long Beach. I want to thank Mark Taylor for working day and night and weekends with us, as well as Jonathan Krause that was present, and Barbara Moore that showed up this Saturday. We put up a town hall meeting about citizens redistricting, and we had 40 people showed up, 20 people watched live on Facebook. And so we have worked really hard, we the people here, and I believe that the citizens get to vote on any of the issues. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please.
I will be her interpreter.
Sure thing.
នាងខ្ញុំឈ្មោះគីនតាន់នាងខ្ញុំរស់នៅសង្កាត់លេខ4នាងខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណដល់ចៅសង្កាត់លេខ4ដែលបានឲ្យសិទ្ធិប្រគល់សិទ្ធិដល់ប្រជាជនគូញាតខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណ
That was a bit quick. She said her name is Kim Tan. She lives in the 4th District. She wants to thank Council Member Dara Supernal for also putting the request for the 5 amendments, especially for the redistricting. She said thank you for allowing her to participate in drafting the policy. And that's it? Yes.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
សូមគោរពអង្គប្រជុំនាងខ្ញុំគីមតាន់
My name is Kim Tan.
ជាប្រជាជនរស់នៅក្នុងសង្កាត់ទី4
I live in 4th District.
ខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណដល់ចៅសង្កាត់ទី4ដែលផ្ដោតមតិបើកសិទ្ធិឲ្យប្រជាជនមានសិទ្ធិក្នុងការគូញ៉ាត់សូមអរគុណ
I want to thank the 4th Council member for starting this initiative to do the citizen redistricting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker. Just as a reminder that Ms. Gavlich is the last speaker. The speakers list is closed. And so, yes, next speaker. Were you waiting? You were in the front. So I will let you speak because you actually were here. So you'll be the last speaker. Second to last, Ms. Gavlich. No more speakers. List is closed. Yes, next speaker.
សូមគោរពទាំងអស់គ្នាខ្ញុំឈ្មោះនីគុយនៅសង្កាត់
My name is Nikoy.
នៅសង្កាត់លេខ4
I live in 4th District.
នាងខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណដល់សង្កាត់ចៅសង្កាត់លេខ4ដែលបានផ្ដល់គំនិតឲ្យពួកនាងខ្ញុំខ្មែរទាំងអស់បានមានសិទ្ធិគូញ៉ាត់ចាសូមអរគុណ
She would like to thank you for sponsoring the proposal for the Citizens Amendment and opening the opportunity for the Cambodian community to participate in drafting the policy together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
ខ្ញុំសូមគោរពដល់អស់លោកទាំងអស់ខ្ញុំឈ្មោះគីមអង
My name is Kim Ong.
ខ្ញុំរស់នៅសង្កាត់លេខ8
She lives in the 8th District.
ខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណដល់ចៅសង្កាត់ដែលបានយល់ព្រមឲ្យប្រជាជនគូញ៉ាត់ខ្លួនឯងខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណធំ
She would like to thank Al Austin for sponsoring this proposal and for showing up on Saturday and opening the opportunity for good governance in handing the power to the people to do redistricting.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please.
I want to ask a couple of things. First of all, what are some other things that we could do with that $750,000? I came up with a couple. I know you've heard a couple. Unfortunately, I can't tell you if it's a repeat because I wasn't able to get in to hear what they were saying. Let's start with wellness officers. We're always talking about what are we going to do to help the homeless people. You could have 3 additional wellness officers for 2 years, full-time, with health benefits, helping the people, really helping the people get what they need. That's getting homeless people off of the grounds. And, by the way, you could also afford a part-time person to follow up because we don't have anybody doing that. The second thing is our animal shelters. Our animal shelters are full. You could fund 6 full-time animal ambassadors for 6 years to help foster and find and rehome animals that are in our shelters. And let's call it what it is. They aren't going to sleep. They aren't being put down. They're being killed. They're being killed because they don't have enough people who can find them homes fast enough. You can stop that. You could turn this into a no-kill shelter from a high-kill shelter and be the only council that has done so. The third thing is parks. We talked about people. We talked about pets. Let's talk about parks. Our parks are in crisis. Our trees are dying, our grass is in terrible shape, and we are using caustic chemicals that it's only a matter of time before somebody sues us because they get cancer, because that is exactly what has been found in Sacramento between Roundup and somebody who has cancer. So people, parks, pets before paperwork. Our general fund, let's talk about that for a minute. This is not your daddy's unlimited credit card or a blank check. This is our taxpayers' dollars. It's plain and simple. We entrusted you to obligate yourself to your campaign platforms, which include wanting to improve community opportunities, finding solutions to homelessness, improving community environments. We did not vote for you because you ran on a platform of pushing unnecessary paperwork before helping people, pets, and parks. Put us first. Long Beach has gone through a lot of trouble in the last 2 months. Please, people, pets, parks before paperwork.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I took off work today, 2:30 in the afternoon, to speak to everybody, including the mayor. I had a hard time finding a place to park, and I refuse to speak if everybody's not here. It's not fair to me, and I'm not going to do it.
Well, fine. Then we'll have the next speaker because we have to give these people get a chance to speak. The mayor will be back, but now I'm taking over. So the next speaker, would you please come to the podium?
I should have spoken.
Wow. Honorable Vice Mayor, City Council member, when I walked in this afternoon, I thought I just walked in just to give my thanks to some important people who came out to support our meeting the other day, Saturday, August the 4th. But when I heard one after one, it appeared to me that they left out the Cambodians. Now, we share a similar concern. When we first came over here to confront the mayors and city councils to ask for the redistricting, it's our Cambodian desire to come to ask for what's right. That being said, yeah, you can clap, please. Yes, we came to ask for what is right. Now I want to take you back to Cambodia. The land, nobody can come to speak like this. No one allowed this opportunity. But when I sat in this room, one after the other, it appeared that we, the citizens of this country, are no exist. Whatever you have the problem, we have the same problem, but don't leave us out. We include us. We want the same equal opportunity. I want to thank Honorable Council Member of the 8th District, Al Austin, his Chief of Staff, Mark Taylor, Chief of Staff for Mayors, and the staff from Council 4th District for come to join us the other day. God bless you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, Joe
This is
Sopo.
definitely Mr. Sopo.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you have my name on file. I want to thank everybody who took off work today to come down here to speak, because I was thinking that charter amendments apparently weren't that important. Why would you have something so important in the middle of the day when most people are working? But from this turnout, you can see it is important. It's important to us. Why would you have it in the middle of the day? Now, if any of you, before you were running for office or running for re-election, would have said, oh, you know, I'm going to vote for a third term. I want to be a third term. You wouldn't have been elected. You would not have been elected. We and the citizens before us years ago approved 2 terms and a write-in. And it's real difficult to get that write-in. You've got to be one hell of a representative to win that write-in. You've got to be doing a good job. So most of you won't get it, okay? Being elected a 3rd term, it is absolutely to your benefit, self-serving benefit, to be reelected for a 3rd term. The only way you could prove me wrong and the rest of the people here wrong is to put an amendment to whatever you're going to be saying after we all sit down and say, okay, they're right. Anybody after I get out of office can go 3rd term. I challenge you to do that. You don't have the courage to do that. Being a city council person is a part-time job. It's always been a part-time job. You may work full-time, but it is a part-time job. If you want a full-time job, come out to the public and we'll give you a job.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please come forward.
Janet West, 4th District. My main objection to these charter amendments is the cost, but I'd like to talk about the redistricting. And I understand the Cambodian community's concern, and I have empathy for them, but district voting is not the way to accomplish anything good. It's a dictatorial form of government. Each one of you controls your district with no checks and balances. And I would suggest that you watch your body language. The last time I was here when Mr. Uranga had his district SA properties and they were vacating the street, as I went back up there and watched, every single one who was still here was watching Mr. Uranga to see what he was gonna recommend. And as soon as he recommended, vote, 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 unanimous. It would be very enlightening if somebody did an analysis of how many unanimous votes there are when it involves one district. Right now, there's a lawsuit going through the courts. The attorney is well known for picking lawsuits that end up at the Supreme Court. He's challenging the California Voting Rights Acts for the city of Poway. And many people believe the California Civil Rights Voting Rights Act violates the federal Voting Rights Act. So to put in a new system at such a cost is not very good.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Norman, member of the 3rd District. And like Mark Coleman, I'm one of the advisors to the Cambodian Equitable Redistricting Committee. And we, too, worked with the mayor's staff and the council staff in order to craft a charter amendment that would be acceptable to a community whose district had been gerrymandered into 4 districts and who were appealing to the council to include the majority of those members in 1 district. We thought that we had crafted a rather tremendous proposal, one that we considered to be one of the top tiers in the country. However, when we hear that the Ethics Commission, which will not be an independent commission, will be included in the screening of the candidates for the redistricting committee, it then puts the issue back into a political process. So I would suggest that this be remedied somehow. We originally suggested that a panel which would include a retired judge, professor in public policy, and a member of an organization, be a part of that screening committee as a way of bringing it into the community. And I think that's much more preferable to an ethics commission whose members are going to be appointed by elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please. And our last few speakers.
Good afternoon. I'm Rich Dines, and to at least one person in the audience, I'm the worst option for the 5th District City Council. But all kidding aside, the 9 of you have a decision to make, and there are some. And thank you, Councilman Austin, for bringing forward Ethics Commission and redistricting. It is very important. I'm not sure if this is something we need to do today or in the primary for 2020. With a minute and a half, I only wanted to touch on one proposed charter amendment, and that is 3 terms. If there's a loophole, and the loophole is that people can continue running as a write-in, then close the loophole. 3 terms does not close the loophole. Saying you can run for 1 term as a write-in, that would close the loophole. But the majority of voters in the 6th, 4th, and in the city as a whole decided they wanted Dee Andrews, Patrick O'Donnell, and Bev O'Neill to stay. That's why they won as write-ins without their name on the ballot in the primary. So I asked the 9 of you, and there's a couple of you that I think could run for mayor, and which I would be very supportive of. If you want that chance in 4 years, don't support this. 3 terms is not going to benefit the voters, and it really isn't going to benefit those on council that want to be mayor in the future, because you'll sit out another 4 years waiting. 30 seconds left, and I would just like to leave that to Ray Gablich. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Jane Nadeau. I live in the 8th District in Bixby Knolls, and I just want to say, go on record as saying, the amendments that you guys are looking at tonight, I think are a bad idea for a special election based on the cost. If you're really serious about these and you think that they have some merit, then take your time. Present them to the public over the next year and have them on a regular election and use that money for something else like potholes, not roundabouts, and parking. And as far as parking for down here, like few people have complained, maybe what you guys should do is start telling people to use Lyft or Uber to come down, or look at another location that does have parking somewhere in the city. Because I'm sure we could come up with something where that way people could get to the meetings without getting frustrated and angry when they come in here because they spent 30 minutes driving around looking for parking and then 30 minutes trying to get through security. But I really encourage you not to pass any of these amendments tonight and hold off and do some more studying and let us be involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please. Ms. Gablich.
Good afternoon. Ray Gavlich, member of Long Beach Neighborhoods First, of CARP, and a former council person. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I think you've heard the message loud and clear. Beverly O'Neill ran in 2006 with her name as a write-in for both elections. In 2007, when the voters were asked to make a decision between 3 terms or allowing a write-in, they denied 3 terms and they voted to support a write-in where if you come up first or second, your name can be on the ballot. So you have that opportunity already in front of you, and as they have said prior to my turn, they've said, you know, if you do a good job, then your people will re-elect you. There is no loophole. If you do a good job, I want you to be there for 3 or 4 or 5 terms. It shouldn't just come automatic. The only 2 offices that will benefit by putting this on as a special election are the 6th with Mr. Andrews and the 8th with Mr. Austin. The others are in their first term. They don't have to look at this as their last opportunity. So I ask that you be cautious, that you include the community overall, the city overall. Yes, I agree with ethics. I agree with redistricting. I know how important, especially the redistricting is. And I hope that we do see some changes within our city constitution. But you need to do a far better job of outreaching, I believe, to the community overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, our last speaker, please.
My name is Carolyn Burns. I live in the 2nd District. I'm a proud member of the Long Beach Taxpayers Association and the newly formed people of Long Beach. I'd like to single out Carlos and Juan Valle for bringing together, for reaching out to CARP, to Kono, to everyone who's here. I want everyone here to stand up and applaud yourselves because you took the day off, you found the parking, you came and you cared. This is awesome. What has been, it's phenomenal. It's just great. I have been at every one of these meetings. They have been creeping up, 4:30, 4, 3 o'clock. Yes, Robert, it is illegal. It's against 1344. Yes, Mr. Parkin, you will be getting some documents and complaints served to you, probably about this and the Measure M meetings, which were all in working hours. The auditor, I'm hearing varying things now. I hear that some of the language has been changed, that her access to documents, which was immediate, was going to be in a timely fashion, and now it's back to immediate. I don't know what's going on. I'm chasing documents all over your portal. The city clerk, I don't know how you keep up with it. You guys do a great job, but we can't stay informed because we don't know the moving pieces are moving so fast. The auditor is the person who stands up for us. She's the one who finds the parking tickets that aren't paid. She's the one who finds the policemen that are being paid too much overtime. She's the one who finds out about the people at the shelter who have too much work and they need a full-time veterinarian. She's the one who finds out about the conflict of interest in the fire department for the people who buy the equipment. She's the one who finds out about the dead trees and the equipment that's not being used. Citizens, keep coming. Council, mayor, please. Remember my name. It's Carolyn Burns. You introduced yourself to me during your campaign.
Thank you, Ms.
I'm not going away.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Appreciate that. Thank you. That concludes the last hearing and the public comment. We have a couple of announcements that I will make sure we make, and then I'm going to turn this over to Councilman Austin. Let me just begin by starting with a few of those. I want to just make sure that we reread. I know that this was included in a memo that I sent to the council that actually the city auditor and I both sent to the council as relates to fiscal impact. And as a reminder, the council is considering not just these measures, but also considering the hotel workplace and restriction item, which will be delivered later today, which was qualified via petition for council deliberation. So dependent on the outcome of the hotel item later and the outcome of what happens here, obviously that will determine the full cost. Now, we do know that a single ballot question, whether it was the hotel workplace item or whether it was any of the charter amendments, the cost is approximately $470,000, and additional questions are $45,000. This was all outlined in the memo, but I just want to clarify that. And the FY19 budget, like we do for every election, all of that is budgeted within the budget, and so that is in the budget. I wanted to make sure that we announce that. The second announcement is all meetings that are held and all meetings that are held as far as the time meet the noticing requirements. We actually follow these per the city attorney very carefully. That was brought up a few times, and all of these were legally posted per the city attorney's office and the city clerk's office. In addition to that, everything gets posted as we do with the agenda as we move forward every single week. A couple other things I'll just add. I think the full council did receive a letter from the president of the Long Beach Water Commission, as well as I know that Mr. Garner is here as well. And I know you've all received this letter maybe a few days ago. And so as an announcement to the audience as well, the Water Commission who brought forward the charter amendment to the council is asking us to please look at 2020 to put that item on, because they would like more time to develop the item with their staff and the community. And so they have sent us that letter. And so the request on that issue is going to be for the council to not take action on the water and the utility measure, but to continue having a conversation in the future about that. And so that was the request that came by Commissioner Shannon as well as Mr. Garner. You all have had a copy of that letter, I think, as well. And so I just want to make sure that for those that haven't seen the letter, that I put it out there as well. And before I also turn it over to Mr. Austin, we're going to have our city auditor, Laura Dowd, who's going to say some remarks about the items, and then we're going to turn this over to Councilman Austin. Ms. Dowd.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for all of your work and your support in this. I want to also just take a minute to thank the public for taking time out of their busy days today to come here and all that they went through to come here to speak their mind and their voice, and we appreciate their involvement in their local government. I would just like to say today that I'm grateful that I was able to work with the mayor in putting these charter amendments together, and I fully support them. Regarding redistricting, I think creating an independent redistricting commission provides an opportunity for the community to drive this process and to incorporate best practices recommended by good government organizations. Regarding an ethics commission, like similar commissions in San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Berkeley, Oakland, San Jose, the Long Beach Commission will play an important role in helping the city comply with regulations pertaining to campaign finance and conflict of interest. And I look forward to working with the Long Beach Ethics Commission in promoting ethical behavior and fraud prevention and detection within the city. Regarding strengthening of term limits, while limited to 2 terms, the mayor and council members can run for an unlimited number of terms as a write-in candidate. And once they win in the primary, their names appear on the general election ballot. I also support term limits for 3 terms because I believe that it promotes long-term decision-making in which I believe allows for more prudent long-term decision-making on behalf of our city. Regarding the City Auditor Authority, the City Auditor Authority Charter Amendment will authorize my department to conduct performance audits and examine all the records necessary, not just financial records, and to have complete access so that we can perform our audits independently while improving city operations. These 4 charter amendment proposals are reasonable, good government initiatives, and I support them. And I urge the members of the council to move these amendments forward and allow Long Beach voters to cast their votes based on their merits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Auditor. I appreciate you and for all of your work. I want to also, I know there's a lot of folks that have now come in for the budget hearing because I see all the budget folks here and folks for the council meeting. So just as a reminder, we're wrapping up we're still in the charter amendment meeting, then we have the budget hearing, and then the city council. Councilman Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had some good discussion, and I want to thank everybody for making it out as well. 3 o'clock is a tough hour for many people to make, and I recognize that, but look, we have a full house. I'd also like to especially thank Common Cause and the Equity for Cambodians for their work and input on the formation of the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. Their input has been invaluable to this process. I can recall just a few years ago, we went through the redistricting process, and my community particularly was really divided. I can think many of the folks here that came and spoke today were here with signs saying don't break Bixby Knolls, right? And I don't think we should ever have to go through that again, and so I think an Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission will eliminate the politics from that process, eliminate the self-servingness. I heard a lot about that from the process and empower our citizens. I'd also like to thank the mayor and city auditor for their engagement and work on these items moving forward. It's been a great pleasure to work closely with them as well as the community. Some people have questioned why now and what is the importance of getting these charter amendments on the November ballot. And I believe for the good government measures, the time is now to move forward, especially for the Redistricting Commission. If we are to have this commission in place for redistricting after the 2020 census, we need the approval by this November. If we wait until the general election in 2020, we'll be up against the clock to get everything in place, and it's going to take some time to get things in place. So there's an urgency to get that approved now. As for the Ethics Commission, this is a recommendation that was first made by the Ethics Task Force established by the City Council, and then Councilmember Bonnie Lowenthal back in 2003, somebody who I've consulted with for many months over on this particular process. That task force was a distinguished panel of leaders in our community, including retired Judge Robert Parkin, Mario Cordero, who is now our Ports Executive Director, Doug Howard, who is now our City Prosecutor, Doug Otto, Felton Williams, school board member, Dennis Lord, and Susan Wise, among others. I've talked to them all about this Ethics Commission and this ideal of moving this commission forward. The Ethics Commission will establish the framework for transparency and accountability to ensure confidence in our city government, greater confidence in our city government. The amendments to the role of the city auditor is something that was requested by our city auditor. It clarifies her authority and in no way diminishes it. And as for the term limits, I do believe it's important to give the voters the opportunity to decide. We do want to continue to do, I don't think we want to be continue to be the only city with a write-in loophole. I want to just mention that every city around here, every city that surrounds Long Beach, except Los Angeles, has no term limits, right? Long Beach Unified School District, we have no term limits. Long Beach City College, we have no term limits. The Board of Supervisors has 3 terms, and that was recently put in place after they had no term limits for many, many years. The State Assembly, the State Senate are limited to 3 terms or 12 years, 12 years total, or 3 terms in the State Assembly, or 6 terms in the State Assembly, and 3 terms in the State Senate. Our city auditor has no term limits. Our city prosecutor has no term limits. Our city attorney has no term limits. But the 3-term limit modification is really not out of the norm and out of the whack with other city governments. And I can just say to many folks who said this is self-serving, please don't assume that everybody wants to be here for 12 years. Please don't assume that. That's an assumption. I think because this is very, very hard work. I think the self-serving item and the conversation that I've had more with anybody in this city is about if we would have brought forth something that would have said make the council full-time. I've heard that from many people because they recognize the workload that it requires to be a city council member. So that said, I'd like to make a motion, number 1, on item number 1, to move and adopt the resolution ordering, calling, and providing for the giving notice of a special municipal election to be held in the city of Long Beach on Tuesday, November 6, 2018, for the purpose of submitting a proposal creating a Citizens Redistricting Commission, directing the city attorney to prepare an impartial analysis of the charter amendment, and providing for the filing of primary and rebuttal arguments, and setting the rules for filing of written arguments regarding the proposed charter amendments to be submitted at said election. So moved.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, and of course, we're going to go through all 5 of these. I know I have 2 council members that want to speak. I guess we should take those now, and then we'll go through all of them. Yep. So let me do Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so we're just speaking of redistricting first, right. Correct? Okay.
I think everyone, to take Councilman Austin's position, I think everyone's just going to speak on any of them. I think Councilman Austin did. You're welcome to speak to all of them now. That's fine.
All right. So on redistricting, I participated in the 2010 census and the redistricting process, both the congressional, the state process, the local process. I see my friend, Mr. Pressburg. We actually went around to the, I don't remember where it was, but we were on a road advocating for North Long Beach at all these different redistricting commission meetings outside of the city. Initially, I wasn't a fan of that process, but in retrospect, I think it was a good, healthy process that brought the community together to advocate and help define what its communities of interest were. That process was very different than the process we had in the city of Long Beach. That process, although I was proud of what we put forward in District 9, citywide, it was a mess. There was politics. The city council voted to enact the boundaries, and that's how it's been as long as anybody can remember. Now, I think it's shameful for us to sit here and acknowledge that we have, a community of interest, the Cambodian community, that when elected officials drew the line, they were divided into 4 distinct districts. I think, I value the Voter Rights Act. Its intent to keep communities of interest together. I think local communities have been under fire here recently for not doing basic things like allowing council districts to begin with and doing citywide elections, because it diminishes and suppresses the right for communities to elect their own. And we're proud of Cambodia Town. We're proud to have our Cambodian community here, and the right thing to do would be to fix our process that has wronged them in the past. Otherwise, we're susceptible to a Voter Rights Act violation, in my opinion. The other thing is, I think creating a process today, now, allows us 3 to 4 years to hone that process and get it together. Before, we didn't begin to understand the process until after the census. Now, we know if we have to begin the process of establishing a commission, figuring out what that process looks like, we're actually giving ourselves a head start on the 2021 or 2022 process. I think from a practical standpoint, that makes sense. One question that I have for the city attorney, whoever drafted it, just in reviewing some of the changes, I see the section that talks about commissioner qualifications, requirements, and post-service restrictions. Section B1, it says the following persons are not eligible to be a commissioner. So one of them is a person whose spouse or registered domestic partner or child within 8 years immediately preceding the date of the application to be on the commission has contributed to a candidate for city elective office in a city year more than $500. In a single year, more than $500. Now, I know campaign finance limits are $400. What is a scenario where someone could have contributed more than $500 in one single election?
It could be to a citywide office.
Okay, so if someone contributed to the mayor or citywide offices, they can't participate. But if you contributed to a city council race, then you can participate. Is that the distinction?
It would be the aggregate or the way, or more than $500, correct? So if you have less than $500, you could do that?
I think we need to make that. Is it time to fix that and bring that down to $400 to make it consistent with what the campaign finance limit actually is for city council candidates?
The problem, and it's not a problem, you could do that, yes, but as you know, every election cycle, the dollar amount is adjusted for inflation.
Certainly.
So if you limit it,
I think it should correlate to that. I mean, as of right now, if our limits are 500, it was 350 when we initially ran. It went up to 400. This says 500. I just think we need to be consistent there. I think it's strange if you can contribute to a mayoral candidate or a citywide elected and you're prohibited from participating in the process, but you can contribute to a council candidate and you're still fine to participate.
It doesn't say you can't contribute. It just gives a dollar limit of total contribution. So you could contribute
the maximum amount.
It doesn't say the maximum amount.
Someone giving a max contribution to the mayor or citywide offices can't participate in this process. Somebody who did on city council can. That's the conflict. How would you recommend we reconcile that?
I think the options are up to the council on how they want to do it. You could change the dollar amount. We don't really have time this evening to rewrite this section in its entirety. You could say any contribution.
I say we make it $100. Because 99 is still, it's not even reported. 99 is not reported. So it has to be at least, the minimum would be at 100.
So moved, good.
Okay, would you accept that, Councilmember?
Sure.
Okay, so that's just something I just thought.
If I could clarify, it's more than $100?
$100.
That's restrictive.
Well, you can't report. I wouldn't say nothing, Mr. Mayor, because under 99 and under isn't even reported. Right? So campaign finance, 100 and up.
Good.
I think, what? Let's say $250. That catches everybody. $250, that brings it down from 500, cuts it in half. So anybody who contributes to one of us, more than $250 is prohibited from participating in this process. Good with that, Councilmember?
I'm good with that.
Thank you. All right, so that addresses the one concern I had about redistricting. I'm going to support this. I think this is good government. I think the people who signed off on this are people who are helping to sort of set a standard for the industry instead of standard across government. So I'm going to support this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Price.
So my understanding is that we can speak to any of the amendments. Is that correct? Okay, so I want to first thank Councilman Austin for leading the charge on both the redistricting effort and the Ethics Commission. I think those are both a really good conversation for us to have, and certainly something that we want to be inclusive of with the community. I want to thank our city auditor for enhancing our current provisions through these amendments to allow her to be able to do her job and her office to be able to do their job in a way that is meaningful and honest and allows her to be able to provide the best results for the city so that we can continue to maximize our efficiencies. I support most of these amendments. I'm going to be voting tonight to move forward on all of them. Because I do think it's something the citizens should have the opportunity to weigh in on. But I have shared with both the mayor and the city auditor in informal discussions with them that I am a huge proponent of term limits. I wrote my law review article that's published when I was in law school on the topic of term limits. But for term limits, a PTA mom like me who works full-time, I do have a full-time job that I love, would never have had the opportunity to run for public office and actually win. Because I had the opportunity to not run against an incumbent. I had the opportunity to fundraise mostly my family members with the first election, and it's certainly an opportunity I would not have had at that time in my life had I been running against an incumbent, and I can guarantee you it's not a venture I would have participated in for sure. As glamorous as amazing this job seems, this is not something I would have signed up for had I had to go up against an incumbent, because everyone knows that going up against an incumbent is very, very difficult. That's just the truth. So I remain conflicted about it. I will say both the mayor and the city auditor have presented some excellent points that I didn't think about. And Councilman Austin just raised an excellent point about consistency with the region. I did not know really what the other term limits were in other regions, cities immediately around us. I look forward to having that discussion with the residents. I do believe that this is something, as many of the speakers said, the residents should have the opportunity to weigh in on. And I look forward to having those discussions over the course of the next few months as we talk about the pros and the cons, and where we land will be the will of the voters. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Yoringa.
Thank you, Mayor. When it comes to the democratic process, it is up to the people. And this is what this is all about. It's putting it to the will of the people. And these charter amendments are going to be up to you. It's also going to be an opportunity for you to share your thoughts, to share your convictions as to what you believe it be good governance. And that would happen in November. I've been involved in redistricting, for example, since 1990. It's been an opportunity for me to help in the process. It was soon after the Watsonville case, which was back in 1985 or so, where it was determined that individuals, communities of interest, and congruency was very important when it came to drawing the lines in redistricting. Back in 1990, back in 2000, 2010, I was an advocate to create a Cambodian district because the community of Cambodia had really grown in Long Beach and was really becoming a community of interest and was congruent within itself, as it is today. And I'm very hopeful that once we establish this commission, that it will view that community as viable and vibrant, that it deserves its representative, let me rephrase that it provides an opportunity for the Cambodian community to vote for someone, a representative of their choice. And that's what the redistricting is all about. And when you look at my district, the 7th district, you look at a chair, you look at a district that is totally discombobulated and totally out of whack with all the other districts. Now, if there's an opportunity for there to fix that, that would be beautiful, because it is one of the most gerrymandered districts in the city. 3 terms, I was never in favor of term limits in the beginning, and I'm still not. But however, 3 terms I think is good enough. And if we can have an amendment that says 3 terms and no more, I would certainly support that. And in regards to the other charter amendments, I think they're good governance. But again, it's going to come up to the citizens of Long Beach and for them to vote. We're going to have a lively discussion. We're going to have a robust discussion, I'm sure, within the next couple of months, and I'm looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And we've got 3 more members. Councilmember Supernall.
Thank you. I'd like to first thank Councilman Al Austin for bringing these issues forward. In particular, I'd also like to thank the Cambodian community, Laura Som, Charles Song, the representatives, Dr. Alex Norman and Mark Coleman. Not only, it was mentioned that you've been to all 3 meetings, but the amount of work in between the meetings far exceeds these meetings here. So thank you for all that energy and all that effort. I think regarding term limits, I share Councilwoman Price's feelings exactly. But at the end of the day, we have to leave it up to the voters. I have a great deal of faith in the voters in the 4th District. I didn't say this, someone else said it, but if anyone followed the 2015 special election, someone said, you know, everybody was against you except for the voters. So they have a special place in my heart, and I have a lot of faith in them being able to make the right decision come November. And one of the speakers here in opposition said, you need to let the citizens decide what they want. And I agree completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pierce.
I almost withdrew my comments, but I'll go ahead. I just want to thank everybody and recognize that these are not sexy items to try to bring forward and try to get through. They're tough items, and I just want to applaud everybody for being at the table and putting your 2 cents in. I especially want to applaud the Cambodian community. I know this has been a journey for you all, and that you're coming out of this process stronger, and so just really proud of that leadership. As somebody who's been an advocate for civic engagement for a very long time, I think taking this, engaging the voters on these issues are all worthy of that. And so I just want to thank everybody for their work. Appreciate it.
And Councilwoman Gonzalez.
I want to chime in too and thank everybody. It's been a very robust conversation, not just today, but prior to this. And I thank everyone and just urge everyone to continue talking about the details of what you'd like to see once this comes into fruition, because we will have the opportunity to do that. And I think the themes that I've been seeing here certainly are inclusivity of all of our communities, especially that Cambodian community that we know is so very special here in the city of Long Beach. Opportunities, as I mentioned, to dig into the details once the municipal code is created. And then thirdly, contrary to popular belief, as Councilmember Al Austin said, you know, some of us may or may not be here in the 3rd term. It's not a given that we want to do this. Contrary to popular belief, I know that's shocking to some of you, but it may be a different outcome for many of us after this 2nd term is done. And not only that, I think a lot of the work that we do in the 1st term oftentimes doesn't even see the light of day to the 2nd term. I have a large regional park. Many of you know Drake Chavez. I don't even know if I'm going to see that if I were to take that 3rd term, let's say, if that happened, write-in or not. So I think this gives us a new opportunity to sort of pivot and see what sort of change we can see on the elected official side. So I look forward to the discussions, and I thank everyone again for being here.
Thank you. And I'm gonna go ahead and close, and then we will go to these votes. And I want to first thank everyone that came out. Obviously, not just this, but have reached out throughout the process. I think that anytime you look at improving the charter, these are not items that oftentimes people find as exciting or that want to be a part of. These are difficult conversations. We're talking about changing the way our government functions, and it's certainly not something that I walked into going, oh, I can't wait to do these things. These all sound like a lot of fun. But I also think that they're necessary. And one commitment that I made to our Cambodian community when I first ran for mayor is that we would address the incredible inequity in the way districting happens for that community. And I believe, having lived through the redistricting process as a council member, which was a total nightmare, I don't want anyone else to have to go through that experience on this body. And to make it an independent body, I think is completely the right decision. And I'm very proud of all, particularly the amazing women and seniors of the Cambodian community that have been so active in this process for many years. And I want to commend you for being here and for being involved in that process. I also want to say that as it relates to these other items, we've tried to bring in, quite frankly, some of the best experts in good government, which is Common Cause, to advise and be involved in the way these have been developed. So I'm thankful to Common Cause. Common Cause believes our redistricting commission is a national model, one of the best they have ever seen. They've been very supportive of the work that we're doing with the Ethics Commission. For those, and as a reminder, a lot of these commissions, folks ask, well, why isn't this in this commission? It's because those items will eventually be in the municipal code. Most commissions are done where you present them, they're either approved or not approved as part of the charter, and then all of the details get built and developed through a process that this council will go through in the municipal code process. I also I want to thank Laura Dowd, our city auditor. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, why is this being changed in this auditor's item, or why is that? My response has been, we've been working together from day one, and I'm happy to support our city auditor and the office's desire to strengthen that office. And so I think these are good government measures, and the people will decide on these items. And so we have a motion and a second for item number 1. And no one, guys, we're done. We have item number 1, which is there's a motion and a second. Also, please note that in this item there is a small technical change that the city attorney has, which is in section D of the power and duty of commission section, just add the words "and at such other times as may be required" to the last sentence. That's a city attorney, just a technical addition. Please cast your votes. And the $250, which we said earlier.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. The second item is I need a motion and a second, please. A recommendation to adopt the resolution calling and providing for notice for the special election to be held on November 16th for the purpose of a proposed charter amendment on qualified electors for the City Ethics Commission, and obviously having the city attorney direct an impartial analysis. There's a motion and a second.
November 6th. You said 16th.
I'm sorry. The next item. So you're absolutely correct. So please, Mr. City Attorney, do you have a question?
No, I think the correction was that you said November 6th of 2018 for the creation of the Cities Ethics Commission.
Yes, I think that's correct. Please go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a resolution to adopt resolution ordering, calling, and providing for giving notice of a special municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 6, 2018, for the purpose of submitting a proposed charter amendment to a vote of the qualified electors, to establishing a 3-term limit on mayoral and city council service, and directing the city attorney to prepare the impartial analysis of the charter amendment. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is you all have something in front of you. Let me read the item first. The next recommendation is to adopt the resolution ordering, calling, and providing for giving notice of a special municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 6, 2018, for the purpose of submitting a proposed charter amendment to a vote of the qualified electors relating to the city auditor's authority, and directing the city attorney to prepare an impartial analysis of the charter amendment. I also want to just briefly, please make sure that you also have in front of you, you have the additional amendments. There are 2 that have been submitted to you in writing. So if what's in writing can be relayed to the record. And in addition to that, I'm also including in the discussion section, you do see section 806 that is on the memo, which as you can see, there are changes to the language. So if you look at section 806 on the cover letter, please make sure that that's included. And we're looking at the second line that says, in the performance of his or her duties, the city auditor shall have timely access to all city records. And that is noted there on the item. Charlie, do I need to read this thing?
Yes, we need to read the changes into the record.
And let me read the changes to the record in Section 803, duties of the city auditor. 1, maintain the original language regarding filing audit reports with the city clerk, and to include the council to receive these audit reports. The proposed revised language is immediately upon the completion of such examination and audit, the city auditor shall make and file with the city clerk and council a written report thereof. If during the course of such examination and audit, the city auditor discovers any irregularities, the city auditor shall immediately make and file a written report thereof to the city clerk and city council. Okay, and in Section 806, copies of records and contracts, maintain the original language requiring that every city contract be filed with the city auditor. The language is a certified copy of every contract in which the city or any of its commissions and is a party shall be filled, or any of its commissions is a party shall be filed with the city auditor within 10 days after execution. And those were the changes as reflected in the last item, so please cast your votes.
Councilman Austin? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And then on the last item, as I had mentioned at the start of the meeting, we're going to make a recommendation to continue conversation on this ballot item at a future date, as per the letter from Commissioner Shannon and the conversations with the Water Department. And so we will not be moving forward on November 6th with this charter amendment item, but we will be sending this back to the Commission for further conversation on this item.
So Mayor, the motion on this item would be to receive and file.
To receive and file, but I think there's a second motion, which is to receive and
Move it
file
forward to 2020.
and to have continue having conversations with the, okay, great. There is a motion and a second, so please go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. At this time, now we have to also do the call for writers. This is a process that the city clerk is involved with. She will send out the correct noticing. Some of you here in the past have been writers on these items. You'll begin seeing these noticings appear, and if you're interested, please contact the city clerk's office. Mr.
Mayor, we have also item number 6. We need to council action on.
Yes, I was just trying to do the writing item. So we have then. So please contact the city clerk, and we're doing an official call for writers for all of these items. And then finally, we have item 6, which is the adopt the resolution of the City Council, the City Council and the City of Long Beach requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles to authorize and order the consolidation of a citywide special municipal election for 4 charter amendments these 4 charter amendments with the statewide general election to be held on November 6, 28, requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles to render specified services to the city relating to the conduct of said special election and determining and declaring that the city will pay to the county reasonable and actual expenses incurred by the county on account of the consolidation of this election. There's a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And then we will be, please, forms for the clerk, if you're interested, will be available, I believe, online later today. So thank you very much. I know we have a lot of people here for the budget meeting, which is next, and then the other meeting. We're taking a 10-minute recess so that we can let folks exit and let folks come in, and we'll go from there. Thank you all very much.